Hello, adventurer! Do you want to dive deep into dungeons to fight off necromancers, or battle against evil sea creatures? What about just wandering into the local tavern? I've just launched my Kickstarter, the Dungeon King Terrain and Miniature System, which is filled with miniatures and terrain to bring your games to life at an affordable price. These are the sets that I designed here in front of me, but I felt like something was missing. So I requisitioned the aid of Bardscraft to come up with a totally new set that's going to be exciting and immersive.
Now I will create the most beautiful Spider Slayer dungeon, and it will be part of the initial release on Kickstarter. Go check out the Kickstarter through the link in the descriptions.
And I, in this video, am now going to show you the process that I go through to take a design and turn it into a product. I'm Jacob, and you're watching Conquest Creations. There's quite a lot that goes into making one of our products here. Bardscraft has done the hard part, the design. And now I'm going to go through making a digital sculpt of that piece, 3D printing it, creating a mold, and then casting it, and finally painting the final piece. Let's get started by breaking down the key design features of Bardscraft design. Bardscraft design has a rocky ground texture and flagstones. Now my flagstones are going to match my Dungeon King starter kit set. Next, there's some big rocks. These ones are the most challenging parts in terms of production. And then we have some bones, some weird mushrooms, this chest, and I think that's enough for us to go on. This whole piece is going to be 8 tiles by 8 tiles, so it's going to fit on 4 tiles this big. For my sculpture, I use Blender, a completely free, incredibly powerful program. I start with completely nothing, and piece by piece I recreate Bardscraft's original design. I've made the ground area now, so it's time to add in some rocks. I'm keeping all the rocks as separate pieces so they can be printed and molded independently. When you are designing a product rather than just a piece for a one-off print, you need to take these things into account, and it makes it quite a bit more challenging. It's an interesting puzzle designing things that are going to be mass-produced, because there's a lot more things you need to take into account so that they're still profitable. By cutting these rocks off into individual pieces, I'm going to save a lot of silicon when I make my molds, which is going to make the process a lot less expensive. With our rocks done, I sculpt a bunch of bones and details and scatter them in the same place that Bardscraft put his. And finally, I make a few small extra details that can be scatter terrain in the dungeon. With our design complete, we can move on to the 3D printing. The design got cut into pieces that fit in the 3D printer, and then the files were put through a slicer. A slicer converts the files into a way where the 3D printer can read them, and there's actually a bit to it here. This is where I can adjust the settings on my 3D printer to get everything just right. Once everything's printed, you can just pop it straight off the bed. Now in this set, you can see that there was a pretty big failure on one of these pieces. Failures like this are unfortunate, but they are a reality of 3D printing. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to patch this rather than reprinting it, because it's going to save me printer fluid and it's going to come out just the same. Some of the other pieces had artifacts left on them as well. On this piece you can see here that there was a block that I must have missed in the design process. Now rather than reprinting this design, I'm going to just sculpt in this rock and carve it out so that it matches with the rest of the piece. Once I'm happy with how my pieces look, I get them cured. This is just shining a really powerful UV light that just solidifies them so they're a bit harder to fix afterwards. Now here is our completed master piece, but I can't mold these pieces quite yet. You see, these pieces are printed in UV resin which contains sulfur. Now if I put my platinum curing silicon over them, it wouldn't work. It would inhibit it and we would just be left with a mess of jelly. So all I'm going to do is take them outside, give them a quick spray paint, and then they're ready to get molded. To make a mold, I glue my piece down on a sheet of steel, and then I build a box around it. It might not look that professional, but Lego is actually the perfect tool for this. I'll seal the edges with some hot glue and pour in my silicon. After a few hours, it's all cured and ready to go. When demolding, I make sure I'm careful here because the silicon can easily get caught on the piece and tear, which would ruin a relatively expensive mold. The final step in production is casting. I used a 2-part polyurethane resin and I mix up equal parts of A and B and carefully pour it in. Once this hardens, it can be pulled out, and that is how our products are produced. The miniatures are all resin 3D printed, just like our little spider who comes in this set. These miniatures were all sculpted by Epic Miniatures. If you want to get the STLs, just check out their Patreon page. I painted this set in the same way that Bardscraft painted his. I used a lot of greens and some blues just like him. You can see more detail on that painting process in his video. The last step was giving our little spider a bright green paint job, and it's ready to terrorize a party of adventurers. I think it matches Bardscraft's design honestly, with a few small changes for production purposes. If you like the look of this set and you want to get your hands on it, check out the Kickstarter. It'll be running until the 12th of February. This set is 75 Australian dollars, and there are heaps of other awesome sets. Thanks for watching this video. If you're interested in more terrain crafting content, I have a playlist of all my Dungeons & Dragons terrain builds on this channel. Some of them are pretty awesome. That's all from me, so thank you for watching.